Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to add new thread. Now if this was a dinky dye piece, the thread that I'm using to join would be the same colour. I'm using different colours so it's easier for you to see what I'm doing. There's a couple of different ways we can add new thread, and what we're making can play a part in how we choose to do it. If we're making something that will be regularly laundered, joining with a knot is a good idea. Even if you're gently hand washing, agitation in the water can make joins become loose. Knotless joins are fine for things that will hardly ever see a wash tub. In saying that, I like to use a knot for all my joins, regardless of what I'm making. And again, we get back to personal preference, doing what works best for you. So it doesn't matter what method we use to make the join, we always join at the end of an element. So at the end of a ring or at the end of a chain. We also need to think about how we're going to hide our ends once we've joined our new thread. Are we going to sew them in? Are we using the magic thread trick, or are we tatting over tails? To join with a knot, I like to use either a square knot or a weaver's knot. So let's do the square knot first. We've run out of thread on our shuttle. So take your new thread, leave a decent tail, wrap your hand for the next ring. We're going to make our ring as normal. So joins, picots, everything is made just as we normally would. Close your ring. Reverse your work. Pop your tails out of the way. And bring your chain down so it sits at the base of your ring. Wrapping your hand, ready for the next chain. Make the first half of your double stitch. Bring that stitch right in. That sits nice and close. We'll continue with our chain. When you've finished your chain, keeping our work on the back, we take both our tails. We're going to tie a square knot. So right over left, and left over right. And that is your join. To hide the tails, you could sew one into the ring and one into the chain. If you had planned ahead, you could use magic thread trick or magic loop. For anyone who doesn't know a magic loop, it's a great way of getting rid of tails. It's my favourite technique for hiding ends. If you're not sure what it is or how it works, I'll include a link for the magic thread trick video in the description box. A new ball thread is attached in a similar way. Again, leave a decent tail on your old thread. Lay your new thread also with a decent tail over the top. Wrap your hand for a chain. Bring the first half of your double stitch in so it sits right in at the base. Continue to complete your chain as normal, just as we did when we're adding new thread for our shuttle thread. We're going to tie a square knot. So again, we're going right over left, and left over right. It's hard to hang on to it so that the camera can pick it up and tie it at the same time. Okay. Then we go ahead and hide our tails. So again, either sew them in or plan ahead and use your magic loops. To join with a weaver's knot, we start by making a slip knot with our new thread. So to make a slip knot, take the thread in your left hand and hold it at the pinch. Wrap the tail around your first two fingers and back into the pinch, creating a loop. Let the tail fall towards the back. Take the loop off your fingers, push the tail up through the loop just enough so that you can get a hold of it. Hold the two ends together and pull. Now your knot should slide. You can test it by pulling on each end of your tail and it will pull out. So once you've tied your slip knot, we want our work to be facing wrong side up. We need our knot to be on the back of our work. Run the old thread through your loop. And pull your tails just enough to tighten the slip knot a little bit. We don't want it super tight just yet. Snug that knot up against your previous stitches. Now we're going to pull on each end of our thread. You'll be able to hear and feel our knot click into place. Turning our work to the front. We can continue on with our next ring. So here we have the option. We can tat over one tail as we make our ring and tat over our other tail as we make the next chain. Tatting over both tails is an option. It's not one I like to use, but you can do it. The reason I don't like it is because you are putting both tails into one element. It's going to make it very bulky. you'll find that you have to tension your stitches pretty tightly to reduce the thickness of your stitch. I prefer to split my tails up, which means I reduce the bulk. If you don't like tatting over tails, you have the other option of sewing your ends in. Okay, adding a new ball thread is exactly the same method as it is for adding a new shuttle thread. I like to put a magic loop in the previous chain. So with a magic loop in, I can now join my new thread. So we make a slip knot. Run our old thread through the loop. Snug it up against the previous stitches and pull. Now I can continue on. So I can tat over this tail when I make my ring, and I can use the magic thread trick for the other one, or you can hide it in the next ring and tat over tails. So if you decide to use knots when you're adding new thread, you do need to think about how you're going to hide your ends. To join new thread without using a knot, for our shuttle thread, again, leave yourself a decent tail with your old and your new thread. Lay your new thread behind your work and wrap your hand for a ring. Just going to shorten my tail a little bit. Make first half of your double stitch and run your old tail through that loop and bring your stitch right in so it butts up against your previous stitches. Second half, pull that tail through. So essentially we're just tatting over tails. Now you can do this anywhere between 5 to 8 stitches, it's up to you. I tend to go more rather than less, especially if I'm not using a knot. When you've finished your chain, oh my goodness, when you've finished your ring, make sure your tail's coming through the back. And just pull your ring closed. When you turn your work and set up for your chain, your other tail will go into your chain. Again, it's a bit long. Snug your chain. And then you're right to snip your tails off. To make a knotless join for our ball thread, we're going to wrap our hand for a ring. Make the first half of our double stitch, but before we snug that right down, we're going to grab our new tail and run it through that loop and pull that stitch right in up against our previous chain. Make the second half, and again we're just tatting over tails. Same as before, close your ring, make sure your tail is through to the back. And it's probably a good idea, if you haven't tangled your new thread, when we turn our work, again like we did before, we can hide our other tail in our chain. Snug your chain. And again, we just snip off our tails. If you enjoyed the video, see you next time.